Hey, everybody. Welcome to the weekly open mic. We do this call because you folks wanted us to. MSPs wanted to hear about what's new with the platform, what bugs we fixed, and you wanted to learn from your peers via a little R&D or rob and duplicate. A couple reminders. If you're interacting with us in Discord, please make sure to either tag the person you're talking to or reply in thread, because we are monitoring hundreds of channels at the same time. Also, we have probably 5 Discord servers at this point because there is a limit to the number of channels you can have per Discord server. So with that, if you're not on the main one, you may not be able to see the coop. So make sure that you're in the coop and that you see the public chatting away using Rewst. Speaking of chatting away, make sure to do that. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 0 MSPs have ever been successful with automation and never asked a question. So if you've never used your Discord or you've never asked a question, odds are you won't automate. We made another announcement this week. I love to make announcements around these large shows like DattoCon and ITNation. By the way, both shows were awesome this year, and I think both shows were better than they had been in prior years. We announced that we're starting to work on integrations that are client-focused integrations, not just MSP-focused integrations. And so this month, we'll be launching integrations for QuickBooks Online, Xero, Bamboo HR, and ADP. That does not mean that if you use these products, you can't use them in your MSP too. But when we're thinking about what integrations we're working on, we typically categorize them as, are they MSP focused integrations or integrations for their customers? This is just the beginning. And to give you a little insight on how we're laid out internally, we actually have a team of devs working on MSP focused integrations and a team of them working on your client type integrations. So more to come. We're super excited. I know a lot of you use QuickBooks Online. So it'll be fun to see what you folks come up with. All right, I think that is all I got. Ash, over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do it a little bit differently today, order-wise. I posted an announcement, but because there's a session going on right before the end of this one, a bunch of our people who are demoing and who are watching need to take off. So we're gonna start with demos, and then we're gonna go over to all of our updates. The very first demo that we are gonna start with is gonna be John. It's gonna be super quick on the theme of ConnectWise. This will be a fun little nerdy thing that some of you might like, and he's gonna get us started. So I think we'll mute here, and then he's gonna, what did you want?
Yeah, I can do that. You might get echoed.
Oh, okay, yeah, actually, we'll
leave the mics on that one. I'll just move closer. Okay. Hey guys. So I know that there's been a lot of requests for integrating with a certain authentication platform that does single sign-on for the entire ConnectWise stack. And I just happen to do that very thing. So I present to you guys the ConnectWise Home registration form. It has instructions on how to start, where to go, what to click on, and I'll just show you guys what it looks like in practice. So if we go over to the products tab, and we click this little generate token button, it gives you a lovely JWT that has limited permissions. And you can take that paste it into your form, and it spits out all of the useful details. You guys can steal my client secret. This is not tied to anything, and I really don't care. But it will give you all of the settings to put in the custom integrations. V1, because I wrote this back in.
That he should consider using some of the money to buy another car.
Justin, you.
I wrote this back in January or so. And then if you go back to the home page and you refresh, so just reload the thing. Now I have a lovely little Rewst cyber drain client. And once you've authenticated, there's a little trick. You have to install a second thing, which is enabling refresh tokens on the client ID. I couldn't do that automatically. So you just install both of these in your workflows. And then once you've set up everything, you just turn that on, and then you can use this to provision users, manage your settings. I think someone has already done that, possibly.
Someone named Brian.
Somebody named Brian.
So what can you do with this?
So the main thing is just being able to provision your users in ConnectWise Home. So instead of having to go here and fill the form out for every single user, now on your internal tech onboarding, you can just go and you can get the payload for creating a new user, figure out what that is, and then just create their account automatically.
Awesome.
That was it.
Thank you.
I actually already posted this one in the custom integration forum, so if you guys are looking for it, it's already available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like to imagine that everybody is actually clapping at home as well. They're just on.
We just were like thinking, but it's very quiet.
All right, so now.
Love it, the fireworks.
Now we're gonna jump over to Brandon. Brandon is going to do his demo, and then we are going to move over to Jared.
Cool. I am running this off my laptop. Give me 1 second to make sure that this is going to share properly. Awesome. Let's turn this off. Automation planner. All right. Is everyone able to see the window? I can't see you guys anymore. I'll take the silence as a yes. So this is a workflow for the MSP rather than the customer here. This is a good way to get an initial kind of idea of time savings and cost savings in labor for planning out workflows. All automation is fun, but some automation is a little bit more valuable than others. So let me run through how this works first, and then I'll show you guys the back end of it. So let's go ahead and let's name this workflow the Goops 3000. Description of the task, infinite Goops. We do this weekly.
That's more daily, let's be honest.
Okay, daily. How many times per day do we Goops?
At least unlimited.
Who's not times it?
Groups about.
I need
3,000 times.
3,000 times a day. How long does this take?
I can validate that it's a number.
It does need to be a number.
It takes a Goops amount of time.
This takes 5 seconds. And this is important too. The number of times the task is reworked. This will also factor in if you have to rework it 20% of the time. If you do regoots, it will feed that back into the calculation. So we need to regoots about 20% of the time. And then lastly, what's the burden hourly rate of the technician? Let's say $80. And this is going to give us a bit of information here. So by automating our infinite goots, we save 450 hours of gootsing in 3 months, 1,800 hours in a year. And then with that hourly rate of the manual technician doing it, we're saving $36,000 over 3 months or $144,000 over a year. The submit button will send a nice formatted email through the basic email connector. So it can be forwarded along to leadership if you are a automation engineer or technician planning this out for your team. Behind the scenes here, there is a lot of Jinja in the form. You'll notice some of these are conditional fields. So we have different options for per month, per week, per day, and then we have conditions set. So The frequency must be monthly to show the monthly one, and that'll require it as well. As far as the actual calculation at the end, this looks awful in line, but once this loads up, it's a little bit better if line breaks. Essentially, I'm doing math to figure out how much time it will be saved over a daily period, and then I just multiply that by however many units we need for how often it's performed to reach 3 months. So it ends up, the result's going to end up being 1 month of time savings. So 3 months is result times 3, and we're just casting it out to an integer. This will round it to the nearest full number. Otherwise, you will get a float with a absurd amount of decimals sometimes. So we're just piping that into int. And then same thing here. So we're multiplying that result times 3 times the tech rate out here. As far as the workflow, very simple. We start with a begin action, we send the report via email, and then we end. So I will be sharing this at some point today, so you guys can use this to help your teams internally justify the automation pricing.
Can you make it spell the XKCD chart?
I can have it append that to the yeah, just highlight which square that falls into.
Okay, so that's becoming next week now.
Hey, Brandon,
Yes.
this is awesome. I'm going to also help the folks watching at home. If you don't have what we've been calling an automation center of excellence, and we haven't really, I've been talking about it when I give my talks, but I haven't been talking about it on this call. An automation center of excellence is super simple. It's 3 people at its smallest. There's an executive sponsor, think like the CEO of the MSP. There is an automation advocate embedded in one of your teams, think like the help desk. Someone who's aware of the crummy tickets the help desk is getting. That's all they need to know. It's just a level of awareness. And then an automation engineer or someone who wears that automation hat every now and then. The way it works is the embedded person in your help desk that knows about the crummy tickets, they're telling the C-level person, and then the C-level person is prioritizing the automation effort to be done by the automation engineer. And that is the perfect world. And what's good about that is everyone knows what's being worked on and what's been automated. I've seen a number of MSPs where only the automation engineer is engaged and not the leadership and not any of the other teams. And so by doing what Brandon just showed, for you automation folks whose C-level people aren't engaged, it's a great way to remind them about the savings of the automations that you've built. If you just work on cool automations and you don't do the types of things that Brandon's doing, everyone's going to forget that you're doing anything because the best automations are the easiest to forget.
Yes, what he said. Any questions on the workflow? I did see a question come through. Yes, this is a MacBook. I am a proud MacBook user because can you do this on Windows?
Or can you use your iPhone as a camera?
Or can you use your iPhone as a camera so you can use the ultra wide and see the whole room?
Sure, as long as I hold it like this.
Being able to use the camera that way is pretty cool. Thank you, Brandon. All right, Jared.
Hey, so today I want to talk about using other tools and how we can incorporate those into Rewst and drive further Rewst automations for all of our partners. So recently at Raven, we started implementing Thread to support all of our clients. And if you're not familiar with Thread, it is essentially a way to provide chat-based support directly through Teams or through Slack or through web apps and things like that, directly to clients to meet them where they work. So we've been messing with this a little bit internally. So I'm going to go ahead and share a screen now. All right, well, wait for the Wi-Fi.
Today's demo is brought to you by the Rosin Shingle Creek Wi-Fi connection.
So as an example, this is kind of what your clients would see using Thread if they wanted to submit a request. So what we're going to do is walk through a simple way that we can initiate a user onboarding directly through Thread and pass that to Rewst. It's going to start with something simple like, hey, we're hiring a new employee. And I can't type either. So we'll give that a second. And Thread's going to go ahead and create a ticket for us back on the PSA side. But in just a moment, it's going to respond with a few questions for us as well, as the AI reads the intent that we have here. And we'll look at that in just a moment too. I'll be taking point.
Please, Stacy.
So at this point, we have a form that's pre-built here in Thread to respond, ask a few basic questions. So we'll respond to the questions. And of course, now Thread is going to ask us if this is correct. Yes, this is correct. And at this point, what we're going to have happen is this is going to get passed over to Rewst once we see the confirmation here. So what we're doing with this at this point, we have a simple webhook listener set up on the Rewst side. So in this case, all we're doing is we have the URL that's placed, and then everything that we just put in through the form process, we can see is passed directly here. And we can see the full JSON response with our intent field, the type of intent that we have, and pass all of that data back into Rewst to process as a workflow. And for setting this up, it's actually pretty simple. All we have to do is go into Magic AI under agents and create our intent. And as you can see, we have a generic intent here set up for new user onboarding. And if we edit that, we can see we've just got a few basic form fields that are here. So this is just one other way that we can assist our clients with, new user onboardings or really anything else that we would want to put through this and pass all of that back by entering the webhook URL at the very bottom of the screen. That's it.
So what drove this use case? What made you build this?
Wondering if I could. In all honesty, it was just we were having some conversations around ways that we could further drive automation for clients and maybe not necessarily generate forms and manage form URLs and things of that nature. So we started playing with Thread and leveraging some of the AI that's powered through Thread.
Are there any questions, any comments? This is the end of our demos. We're gonna move over things. So any questions or comments, now's the chance.
My only comment is that you guys are awesome.
Now, hang on, I gotta do it manually. There we go.
Oh.
See, automation fails sometimes.
MacBooks, am I right?
Yeah, sure. Probably looks off your normal camera.
Probably. Yeah.
Question in the chat.
Says, Nick, I'm not sure, is that question for Jared? Was the previous form available as a crate? What's that question for?
Oh, is that about Raven's form?
Logan wants to know if your engineering team thinks it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nick, if it's referring to my forum, it will be posted in the Rewst Discord. So check out the Discord, normalized Discord usage.
All right, well, thank you very much, Brandon, John, and Jared. Thank you, Fred, for coming. We're going to move over to Nick now for our development updates.
Do we have Nick?
You ready to quit on us?
I see him trying to talk. Nick, we can't hear you.
Here now,
Yes,
No.
a little bit.
maybe.
There you go.
Okay, good. All right. Got caught off guard by the new format we're going with today, and my cat is visiting me right now. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take updates. All right. We have a number of updates to talk about here. These updates have not been fully deployed yet. They have been deployed to Germany, Australia, and they will be deployed to UK this afternoon. They will be deployed to US. Multiplayer workflows have been fully released to all users. We turn that feature flag on to 100%. So if you're looking at a workflow and you see a dot flying around the screen with a username attached to it, that means somebody else is looking at the same workflow as you. We added a root level user namespace to Jinja. Previously, you'd have to do ctx.user.username to get access to the information about the user in the context of Jinja. You can now just do user.username.email.id, whatever. We added an action column to data tables in App Builder that allows you to open a dialog and pass the context of the row into that dialog message. So if you have a table of data and you want to allow your users to click a button to open a dialog, which then presents them with additional options or buttons to click that relate to that row, you can now do that. We made some UI enhancements for the Microsoft Cloud Bundle. We fixed a line guard pagination issue related to filtering. We fixed some bugs with Crate Marketplace syncing across multiple regions. So when we make changes to crates, those automatically get deployed and synced to every other Rewst region that we support. There was a bug there that was discovered, and that's been resolved. So those are now properly being sent out to other locations. We added integration test generator to automatically set up tests for integrations to catch more bugs. So now when we create an integration, we can run some code that will automatically create tests to test that integration. So we don't have to manually write tests for integrations, and this will catch more bugs for us. We've improved error logging for workflow execution kickoff. We fixed the get ticket action for Freshdesk, simplified time zone naming anywhere there's a drop down to pick a time zone. We fixed a problem where updating a sub workflow was not updating the parent workflow, which would cause bugs and issues if you were to say remove a input from the sub workflow. Previously, if you removed an input from the sub workflow, it wouldn't update the parent workflows to remove that input, and then executing the workflow would result in failures. We fixed org.integrations Jinja to only return integrations for the org in the scope that it's being used in, and not all of the child orgs. There was a fix to the generic API request action for custom integrations v2. We added more scopes to the Google Workspace admin actions for our Google integration. We fixed a bug with WebRoot integration access token caching. We hid the authorization button on custom integrations v2, where that authorization button does not make sense for the auth schema that was selected to be used for that particular integration. Fixed a bug with auth checks for embedded forms that were sometimes causing users to receive a 503. Replaced some calls from our engine to our Graph API to retrieve integration configurations. We replaced them with direct calls to the database. Previously, when the engine needed to get information about a particular integration, it would hit our API to retrieve those details. Now it retrieves them directly from the database, and this should get us better performance and eliminate the possibility of network connection errors or network level bugs in those calls. We've increased max page size and max pages for Bitdefender. fixed a bug with Microsoft Teams sensors where we were unable to use multiple of those triggers in a workflow. So that will be resolved. And a bug related to org mapping that was sometimes causing workflow initiation failures. This was very rare, but we did find a thing to fix there. And fixed a bug with Rewst causing client attribute error when requesting access token. And finally, a bug where updating a cron trigger would sometimes not apply the change to all trigger instances if you had, say, selected that trigger to apply for multiple organizations that you manage. Like Aaron mentioned, new HR integrations all coming out. QuickBooks, Xero, Bamboo, Nodeware, Bitdefender, and GitHub are all under staff review. We'll take a look at those this week. They've all passed QA. We'll poke around at them internally, make sure everything looks good, and then we'll flip the feature flag to turn all of these on for you guys. We're still looking at IT portal integration and Cove integration, as well as app builder page export import functionality. Actually, that's been released. I'm sorry. This is incorrect. Page export import has been released. I don't think that we've released entire app level import export yet. And we're also working on the cloning feature for that as well, which will be coming very soon. So yep, full app export import, looking at a Crushbank integration, SQL database integration refactors and code review, ConnectSecure v4, which we've heard a lot about, is in development, and we're looking at a PAX8 refactor. Does anybody have any questions about any of these? Mr. G Unit in chat, we agree with your sentiments about Code API.
Someone's asking what the PAX8 refactor entails.
Daniel, are you aware of what the PAX8 refactor entails? I could take a strong guess, but
It's authorization. They're retiring, sunsetting their authorization method and moving towards OAuth, I believe. I'd have to find the details, but it's all authorization. That's it.
Yep.
There it is, Tim. Yeah.
Daniel, do we have an estimate on ConnectSecure v4? I believe we were waiting on them for some stuff. You know,
We're actually ready. We're ready to go. The big thing for us is helping everybody who's uses ConnectSecure v3 to migrate to v4, and so we're going through plans for that. This is a completely new API, so it's like the migrate from old to new is more difficult. So we're just working on our plans for that. That's the thing that's stopping us, really. Andy, the PAX8 refactor is just at this time going to be for authorization, not for other for new actions and stuff like that.
I think the only other question in the chat is about, did the extra license rate ever get NCE love?
I am not too sure, Logan. Let me follow up on that.
While you're following up on that, you can also start your marketplace update.
I can. Just let me make sure that I have that Logan's ask written down so I don't lie. Okay. All right. Welcome to the marketplace segment. Share my screen here. Okay, so new crates and enhancements. We didn't release any big enhancements this week, but I'll talk about some of the stuff we have coming soon. We have a few bug fixes. We have the user offboarding crate. We fixed one of the inputs that was originally a text type. We changed it over to Boolean. We fixed we made another fix to the configure new GDAP relationship crate. There was an error on the list customers action when the graph response is empty, so we made sure that we handled that error. I think it had something to do with Microsoft changing the format of the response. when no results were returned. The stuff that we're working on right now, like Nick mentioned, we're working on the cloning and syncing of app builder apps. So the hope right now is that for a release by on next Saturday-ish is when we can get all these apps into everybody's hands. Again, there's an operational analytics portal, the forms portal, and an all-in-one client portal. If you want to get more information on that, ping me. But the faster way would probably be, and the better way would probably be to look at our previous AMAs, our app builder AMAs, or the open mics. I know we've demoed a few of them in there. We are also working on our top 10 crates. So we're giving a lot of thought to those. We're improving the success rates and implementing best practice for a lot of these. So we have some exciting stuff coming out. I would hope for next week. We have the alert when mailbox quota full crate. So if you've noticed that maybe you're not seeing the success rates on that as high as you would, some fixes that we have coming out in the next week or so are going to help with that. We have the detailed MFA reporting crate, as well as the configure out of office crate, getting these improvements and best practices applied to them. And that's it.
All right, so now we will jump over to Brandon.
Heyo, happy Friday, everyone. Can y'all see me? Hold on, I need to give my my hat some room since y'all need to count. I'm trying to be tricky again, so you guys got to tell me how many hats I have, and we'll see. You have to let me know in the chat. Let me share my screen here. All right, can everybody see my screen? Awesome. All right, gonna start off with my game tip of the week. And honestly, maybe I'm just a broken record at this point, but I'm super excited about Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake coming out next Thursday. If any of you, for some reason, have pre-ordered on Amazon a while back, I think they worked things out with Nintendo because there was some weird thing happening where they weren't shipping it on time. And so if you cancel and pre-order again, you'll get it on Thursday. At least that's what they say before they ship it. We'll see. But really, the real game tip of the week here is to go talk to Reed Kimball, because he'll show you how to make games in Rewst. And that's pretty awesome. If you guys didn't see that last week, go check that out. All right. Shout outs to Aston, Jonathan, Jimmy, and Jacques for passing the foundation certification, or I should say Jacques. I'm not sure how to say that. You guys will have your certified Rooster badge in Discord. You'll get your certificate, and you will get access to our not so super secret Discord channel, where you can chat with other folks who have been certified and get into the goods of automating. So go check that out. Also, shout outs to Andrew, Evan, Chad, Arbin, Cody, Robert, and Jimmy for passing the Clean Automation certification. That is the next step up in your automation journey. For those of you who may be new, definitely go check those out and get certified. Otherwise, we have the Rewst Foundations Bootcamp. If you guys didn't hear about that last week, we have just launched this. This is basically a 2-day intensive foundations course. So the next one is scheduled for December 2nd through December 3rd, and you guys can sign up at calendly.com/clucku. I sound like a YouTuber right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. There's going to be 2 parts on a Monday and a Tuesday. Otherwise, again, if you haven't already checked us out in Discord, just the classic CluckU channel, happy to help and happy to support there as well. And we have office hours. So you guys can hang out with Eddie and ask him whatever you want. You want to ask him what his favorite, his favorite meal is, as well as some questions about automation. Go to office hours. It's a good time. All right. Otherwise, we have some updates here. Just as a reminder for those of you who may be new, or maybe you haven't taken a look at some of our courses in a while and you want a refresher, we have updated the Rewst Foundations courses, and we have more updates coming as well. And there is our Cluck University landing page where you can see all the resources available to you. We will have updates there coming in the future as well. We have some feedback forms. You are welcome to fill out to give us feedback on topics that you'd be interested in seeing represented in either docs or training. And of course, just general feedback on whether or not you find the training helpful. We take that feedback very, very seriously. So please, if anybody has any thoughts, you can either send them to us via Discord or you can fill out one of those forms. Otherwise, we got a few docs pages updated today. We have the Xero, QuickBooks Online, and Bamboo HR integration pages added. And we've added a troubleshooting Halo integration setup pages as well, based on some feedback that we've gotten from some customers. And we've also updated the incoming and outgoing domains and IPs page. So we've added some IPs and domains to make sure you guys have everything you need. And we've added some additional information to the ConnectWise Automate integration setup, Autotask integration setup, and least privilege access requirements for ConnectWise Manage integration pages to make sure if there are any gotchas, we got you covered. So that's going to be it from my end today. And looking forward to how many hats you think I'm wearing in the chat.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, so we've had a bunch of friends leave because they have a session to go to. We are done with our updates. Unless I've forgotten anybody, please let me know. But otherwise, I don't think that we're gonna have anything other than Q&A time now. So if anybody's got any questions or they have something they want to show off, now's the chance. Just you could also come off mute and just chat if you want. Florida is not as sunny as it should be, but it is quite beautiful. Muggy.
Wow. Very humid.
Trey, it's a trick. You have to wait at least 8 seconds for people to like build up the courage to talk. That's the trick.
See, that's the thing though. No one's talking.
Maybe it was like an 8-second beat.
Okay, let's
Are you
see.
at
Let's
the
try it again.
airport?
Yeah, I get here only for them to delay my flight an hour.
No. What's a tri-corner hat?
It's one of the turbulence you guys were wearing. Yes.
Oh.
Irons. Well, also colonial. Yeah.
I could talk, just don't have much to say, but you want someone to talk, right, Tim?
So we had ITNation this week. We had Donathon last week. Was there anything there that you guys saw or got inspired by that you would want to bring up to the group?
Tony Hawk was on stage this morning, and a ConnectWise employee did a kickflip on stage in front of Tony Hawk, which I imagine was the highlight of his entire life.
Actually, yes, and I would love to make a comment to everybody on this call about the Tony Hawk keynote, because he was so inspiring, and he showed a video at the end where he was like, I'm going to try to learn this thing. And he was like, it doesn't learn, you don't just learn it overnight. And he showed like all of these failures, all of these falls. And I thought, and I actually wrote down, it reminded me of the open mic, because so many people are like, I need to perfect this workflow. I need to have a beautiful, fully polished thing before I can show it off. And it's like, that's not how you got there though. The way that you got there was through trial and error, was through showing up, was through attending these calls, was through going to training, figuring out those things. And so it's like, I want to put a call out to anybody who thinks that they can step up and maybe next week, maybe the week before or after, show us something that you're in the middle of. Like, don't give us your polished finished product. Like, let's see what you're working on, because it's going to mean so much more to you and to everybody else. When we've seen the trial and error that you've gone through, and when we've seen all of that effort, and somebody stood up and said, how do you handle the imposter syndrome that comes along with being Tony Hawk? And he said, I think that over 20 years of putting this grid in and showing how and realizing how much effort actually went into my work, it kind of just fell away over time. And I think that like, that's really translatable to us and our work too. And the more we show it off, the more we realize other people find that value. And so I think that will be a really positive community thing for us to take away from this. That's my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. There's also a great question that was asked in the audience. Someone said they were showing the 4-year-old videos of Tony Hawk and asked if they had any questions from the ask. And the 4-year-old's answer was, does he walk? The answer was 50-50.
Enrique, did you say you had a question or were you just gonna chat?
Oh, no, I said, when you were asking for people to talk, I said I could talk, but I just not sure if there's going to be any value in my conversation.
Well, feel free if you want, or anybody else, if you got a question, chime in. We also need to keep you, Aaron can make some anecdotes as well.
Aaron, what are your thoughts on hard versus soft water?
We don't
Hard
have that
water.
long left.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time to go over hard water versus soft water. I'm not gonna. Well, I'm reading the channel. How about anybody have an error in a workflow they want to talk about? Want to share their screen? We also don't have to stay on a full hour.
But that's what I look forward to at this time on Friday.
All right. Enrique, ask us a question.
Actually, I did notice something earlier on my IT glue. So we write everything from 365 into IT glue, but for one customer, I noticed his forms were not there. That's a support question. Just triggered my thought.
Does anyone know what Enrique is talking about that we could point him in the right direction?
Does it work for other customers?
It does, mysteriously.
I would probably check the integration mappings.
I was going to say ignore me. I think I'm losing it.
Yeah,
I
check
think
it and then maybe post in your Discord. You can follow up with you there.
Yeah, two main things to check would be the org mappings for the integration and then the trigger itself to make sure that it's set to trigger for all your orgs.
I think the issue is this customer's not in the CSP because they're with GoDaddy. It's a whole other bigger issue, I think, but I must be going crazy.
Some people in the chat are saying strange characters in the customer name have also caused issues for them on IT Glue. Extra white spaces or invisible Unicode characters.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if it was in Rewst. The tenant. That would work.
I see a hand up.
Yeah, there's a hand up for
Frank, was that, did you still have a question?
Yeah, since I'll be a brave soul, I have a sub workflow that I was working on last night, and the sub workflow is the output coming back to the parent workflow. As I go through the list iteration, I end up, instead of it being an object or JSON XML, it ends up being a string. And it's bombing out when I try and loop through the whole accumulated data.
When you're right.
Do you want to go, Brandon, or I can?
Oh, I was gonna say, is it coming out of a Jinja expression?
In the sub workflow?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Usually for me, that's oftentimes white space characters. There is a hyphen you can add. So rather than having the expression be bracket, bracket, and then your expression, bracket, bracket, hyphen, and then on the end, hyphen, bracket, bracket. That is a Jinja command that removes all white space. Is usually what it is. Daniel, is that kind of what you're going to say? Or
Okay.
It was exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah. In the chat, Brian posted an example of that syntax.
Okay. And I did look up when it kept bombing out. I was looking up because Python has a type that you can verify, and it seems a little convoluted how you have to do it in Jinja to figure out if it's a string or what object type it is. So cool. Thank you. I'll try that.
Kevin's asking if the bracket tag auto completes. It should, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you type in the opening, it should automatically write the closing to match it. And we can talk a little bit about why that's the case, why you have to do that. So Jinja is a templating language, which means that it's made, it's made to output or get itself embedded in other text. So kind of like a Mad Libs, where you'll have some space for information that might vary, but built into like some other information that might not. So for example, if you are building an HTML page, you would maybe put in like something like first name, and when you do that, you don't want to remove any white space between like dear first name. You want to keep that there so that it looks normal. In Rewst, whenever we write Jinja, it could be for multiple reasons. Some reasons could be to build out that sort of a template where we're building a sentence or a paragraph or an HTML, and we want it to look a certain way. The other thing that we add output would be an object, like a list or a JSON object. The system doesn't know automatically what we want the output to be. So if there's any white space that is part of the Jinja template or expression or whatever you want to call it, it's going to assume that you need to build a giant string. If you don't want to build a string, then you need to make sure that there's no white space characters that are going to be output in that template, or we call it the Jinja burger sometimes. So by having any white space, it could potentially be, it will be interpreted as a string and not as an object. So when other steps happen, the result of that variable will be treated as a string and not an object. Removing the white space will make sure it's treated as an object.
Could that happen almost with any field that you're pulling from a PSA or anything, and say, for an example, a workstation name, or there's an extra space at the end of a title of a ticket, and then it'll blow up the entire object to a string?
It really depends on how you're calling it. Typically, no, because if it's a string that's passed in as part of the output of some operation like that, it's typically going to already be encapsulated in quotes, so it'll know where it begins and ends.
Okay.
Typically, you see this whenever you're building some expression that then goes into another step of Rewst.
Okay.
Yeah, and then sometimes we want to treat we've got objects and lists and things that we handle in Rewst. Sometimes we want to treat them as objects on purpose, but sometimes we might want to treat them as a string on purpose. So whenever we do pass an object to something that requires a string, so we see this sometimes when we're doing maybe custom actions and APIs and things, we might need to stringify that JSON. And so we have Jinja filters that will take that object and convert that to what we call a JSON string, which is a fully quoted version of the object that's output as JSON in a string.
Is that a method similar to Python where you would just like the variable or object dot to JSON and then
it's literally that, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Saw a question in the chat a little bit up about using Webhook to call into customer organizations. Yeah, Owen.
Yeah, how can I have a workflow triggered via completion handler run on the same customer or context? I've used the completed workflow org variables for now, but it shows it's running under the parent org. I was told I could potentially use webhook triggers. Just want some thoughts on how that can be possible.
Yeah.
It's easier to go from a child org up. It's really to go from the parent org back down. Yeah, I've never tried it, but I don't. Some
should run as org in that case, right?
You could, so there's two ways. As Ashley mentioned, you could do run as org. So you would still call it the parent level, but then set your, maybe put all your steps in a sub workflow that you then run as the org. So what Jim Barry was getting at, and I think what your question is how would you have that parent workflow then call a workflow that lives within the customer organization, right? I mean, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
I'm running the workflow as on a cron job, as you know, for each of the organizations. And then when it is completed and has a success, I want to trigger another one. When that next one is triggered, it's being run as the parent org.
Yeah. So you're going to have you'll be able to pull the organization ID of that first workflow that ran. Brandon, do you remember the exact, is it or just org dead?
Yeah, or
completed workflow.
ctx.organization.id. That'll be the ID of any org executing. I would also maybe suggest refactoring the way the workflow is run to have a master workflow that calls a number of sub workflows. So your initial action is a sub workflow, which then upon completion calls the other action as a sub workflow in there. That should retain the running organization because the actual workflow calling both of those is running under the context of that org. You could also craft, I think what the webhook thing was is webhooks are created in a very consistent format where the trigger ID is the same and the only thing different is going to be the org ID. So you can grab the org ID and craft the URL to post it out to. That is kind of getting around some things the platform wants as far as security, I think.
Query parameters at the end of your webhook URL that you're calling from within a workflow. So you could potentially call it like a post with a query parameter of the org ID that was executing and then run it as org with that org.
Yeah.
So the answer is there are many ways to do it.
Personally, I would refactor.
Maybe somebody can show some examples of that next week. If nobody has one, I think I've got one, so we'll show.
I wonder if I can pull up an example.
Can I interject real quick? Because Brandon said something that was kind of important. And first I'll say, Ash, exactly what you said is how I would have suggested to solve it. But Brandon, you said ctx.organization.whatever versus org.whatever. And I've got an open discussion right now about the difference between the two because I can mess with ctx.organization.whatever by sending a Jinja-laden payload in the webhook body. But I can't mess with org. So there's like a certain, if it's already in the context, I say that loosely, because it not CTX, whatever the upper level is, whatever you would call that. If it's already in there, you can't mess with it. But if it's in there and it gets copied into CTX, then you can mess with it in the CTX side. So I wondered if anybody ever actually accessed things off of ctx.organization versus just org. So that's interesting.
It would depend also on the trigger it's running it. Like if it is accepting webhook posts or not. But yeah, that's a good point as well.
So it happens even in a Git. Doesn't matter what kind of.
Yeah. I mean, you could query it and then it would be a ctx.param coming through in a get.
Daniel, Dunkey, Jacob Snolton, are you on the call to answer Jonathan Bramley?
Oh, no. Yes, so Jonathan Bramley is asking how large an org variable can be. 47 megabytes.
As big as the entire NFL database?
They can be logged. Why you should not store lots of data in that, why you should not treat an ordinary variable as a database. The simplest reason is that you will have race conditions. So org variables are read in one point and updated at another time. If you have a workflow that, or multiple workflow instances that are using that, then you don't know what you're going to get there. And also, as Brian Simpson says, you can have Genji evaluation timeouts if your data set is too long, as Danial DK has seen. But it's much cleaner and much safer to use a real database as a database. We do have, so the best place to store data is the application that the data should live in the first place. So if you're storing data about ConnectWise tickets, for example, then you might want to use a custom field within the tickets. Store it you store the data where the data should live. If it's something else, we have the ability to integrate with databases. You can integrate with a SQL database using our SQL integration. You can integrate with with Azure tables using our Azure integration. Both of those are very good places to store data because you don't have those race conditions and you can store as much data as you want. And your workflows will only interact with the data that they need to. Other places to store data, you could use a template or something. Still not the best use of it because, again, you would have those same issues. Again, the best place is where the data should naturally live in the first place.
We're at time. We are at time. I think I saw Timothy say that he could show some examples next week. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you to everyone else who asked questions. We'll follow up if there's any missing here. But yeah, I think it's a good example. Anything, maybe what we can do, Tim, even is like pull out some examples of questions that come up, motivate people to ask them, because then we can show some stuff off examples the following week.
Especially when we have community members willing to come up and demonstrate the answers.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for the folks in ITNation for getting a room and doing this and getting everyone together. I miss you people. I was just there, it feels like minutes ago. Thank you, everyone, for joining the open mic. Thank you for everyone who demoed. It's stressful. We had over 160 people on, so thank you again. With that, have a good week, and we'll see you again next Friday. Toodles.
Meow. Meow. Meow.